Welcome to a very special edition of the show. Joining me today is the Professor of Theoretical Physics in the City College of New York. He has written 3 New York Times bestseller books and has TV programs on the BBC, Discovery Channel, History Channel and the Science Channel. But most people know him as the popularizer of science and a world-renowned futurist, Dr. Michio Kaku. Welcome to the show. Dr. Kaku, honored to have had your company here.
No, thank you.
First of all, just now you did mention that in terms of Malaysia, for us to advance our economy, for us to advance the nation as a whole, we already have most things. We already have the talent, we already have the resources, we already have everything. But we just lack that one spark, you say. What is that spark?
Yes, I compare Malaysia to a gigantic rocket that's just about to blast off. It has an educated population, a population at peace, no ethnic rivalries, a population that's young, dynamic, energetic, looking forward to the future, a government that's sympathetic to all of this. So, what's the missing link? What's the spark, the match that's going to set this rocket into outer space? It is entrepreneurs. We need more entrepreneurs with the energy, the imagination, the innovative spirit necessary to push the rocket into outer space. And that's what this conference is about, to try to nourish a young group of entrepreneurs who have the vision and the energy necessary to make this rocket take off.
You also said that wealth comes from science and technology. Well, what we've seen recently, if anything, is people generally complaining that the advancement of economies and the creation of wealth do not benefit them. I mean, we've even had people like Mark Zuckerberg say if they can change one thing is to reboot globalization. So what's the formula? How do we ensure that the advancement of science and advancement of economies equally benefit every single one?
Well, first of all, science is the origin of all progress and prosperity, starting with the steam engine, giving us the Industrial Revolution, which took us from feudalism and slavery into the mechanical age, then electricity and magnetism, which gave us the electric age, which lit up our cities. Third, the computer revolution and the space program, which gave us all this high-tech stuff. But revolutions are uneven. When revolutions start, there's some people left behind. So we have to make sure that all of us can be part of this great revolution. For example, when steam power first came in, there were people left behind by the coming of factories. That's why we had Marxism. And then in the 1930s, we had the coming of electricity and the automobile, but there were some people left out. And that gave us trade unionism in order to make sure that everyone came forward. And today, again, we have a backlash because not everyone is participating in the digital revolution. That's why we have Donald Trump. Donald Trump represents millions of people that are displaced because of the computer revolution, but they too will eventually start to rise, just like the steam revolution benefited everybody. Eventually, the electric revolution also benefited everybody, but it took time. What we need is education. Education to lift everybody so they can be part of this new great revolution, this creator of wealth, this wealth generation.
Will there come a revolution, or will the digital revolution be the revolution that benefits everyone and ensures that no one is left out? Or is it inevitable that with every revolution for the next hundreds of thousands of years, there will be some pockets of people that's going to be left out?
First of all, let's be clear. Every revolution so far that we've seen has been uneven, and initially there are people left behind. That's why we have to educate them, because realize that 200 years ago we were all farmers. We were just farmers with no education, no schooling whatsoever. Mandatory schooling was not required 200 years ago, and we went from that period to the modern day, where education is mandatory. You have to go to school, you have to take exams, and you strive to go to college. In the United States, for example, 30% of the people have done very well in the last 15, 20 years. Very well. But 70% have stagnated and even fallen behind. Who are these people? 30% of America goes to college and graduates from college. They are the ones who benefited, while 70% only had a high school education. So what's the solution? Obviously, it's education. We have to make sure that people are educated so they can do more than just factory work, that they can be part of this new revolution. But our educational system is very backward. We graduate high school kids to live very fruitfully in the year 1950. There's only one problem, small problem. We don't live in 1950 anymore. We don't live in a factory-oriented economy anymore. The jobs, there are plenty of jobs, but they're high-tech jobs. They're jobs involving computers. They're jobs that require a little bit of intellectual skills. That's where education comes in. That's why we have to lift everybody so that all boats will rise when the tide rises.
But as you've mentioned, the education system is more at par. It's as if we were living in the 50s.
Right.
So what needs to change with the education system?
Well, you know, we are all born scientists. Every single one of us is born wondering, why does the sun shine? Where did we come from? But what happens is there's this great killer of scientists, the greatest killer of scientists known to science. And what is that? High school. When you're in high school, science is made boring. Science is crushed out of you because it's all memorization. We got to change that. We got to make sure that people realize that science is the future. Science is your life. We're talking about how you will live in the future. That's what science is really like, not just memorizing the parts of a flower, memorizing the minerals, memorizing friction. I fall asleep thinking about that. But that's how we teach young people. We have to change the educational system, shake it up, so that the energy and curiosity of young people is not squashed by memorization.
Well, still on the topic of education, you, in your presentation just now, which was very good, you talked about, amongst many other things, AI and nanotech, biotech. You cited one example where there will be contact lenses where you can just blink and you get every single possible information that you need at a particular point in time. With information that freely accessible, anytime, anywhere, is there even a need for schools to teach anymore? And what can schools teach in the future where everyone can have information at their fingertips?
Yes, in the future, the internet will be in your contact lens. You'll simply blink and you'll be online. When I see you in the future, I'll see your biography next to your image. And if you speak to me in Chinese, my contact lens will translate Chinese and put subtitles underneath your image so I know exactly what you're saying in any language whatsoever. Now, in this situation, where do we need professors? Because you can see the periodic chart, you can see all the amino acids, you can see all the mathematical formulas right there in your contact lens. But you see, how do you use the periodic chart? How do you take advantage of oxygen, hydrogen, carbon? It's just a bunch of things laid out for you in your contact lens. That's what we have to teach. Concepts, principles is what we will teach. How to use this knowledge, not just spitting it out on an exam that you're going to forget the next day anyway. So we teach students today to memorize useless facts, which you forget the day after the exam. The day after the exam, you forget all the minerals, all the crystals, you forget all the elements of the periodic chart, because you know it's unnecessary. We have to make sure that we know how to use this information using concepts and principles rather than memorization.
And with that, we'll just take a short break, Doctor. We'll return with world-renowned physicist and futurist Dr. Michio Kaku. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to a very special edition of the show. I've been speaking to the author of 3 New York Times bestseller books and most people know as the popularizer of science, a world-renowned futurist and physicist, none other than Dr. Michio Kaku. Doctor, we are talking about the alarmingly fast-paced that technology is evolving and jobs that don't exist today that's going to exist in the next few years.
That's right.
So of course, skill sets have to evolve and what we teach our kids have to evolve as well. What do you teach your kids to ensure that they remain relevant for the next 5 and 10 years?
Well, first of all, I teach them that you're going to have a little bit of mathematics. You're going to have to learn some of the basic laws of science, and that jobs that seem very promising today are going to be obsolete in the future. For example, we don't have blacksmiths anymore. We don't have wagon makers anymore. But do we cry over it? Do we cry over the fact that we have no more wagon makers anymore? No, because the wagon makers became automobile workers. In the future, the automobile workers will become robotics workers. They're going to design, maintain, repair robots. They're going to be using robots just like we use cars today. In fact, your car is going to become a robot. You'll talk to your car. You'll argue with your car. The car will park itself. You talk to your car on your wristwatch, park yourself, and the car goes out and parks itself. And so you realize that that industry, the automobile industry, is going to be absorbed into the robotics industry. It's going to be huge in the future. And that's what we have to prepare young people for, that future.
The age-old debate, will automation and robots kill jobs, or will it complement each other?
And the answer is yes and no. It'll kill a lot of jobs, but open up more jobs. For example, robots cannot pick up garbage. Robots cannot do gardening. Robots cannot solve a crime. Things that involve intellectual skills, skills involving pattern recognition, understanding what you're looking at, understanding common sense. Robots are very, very bad at that, which means in the future we'll have police, gardeners, construction workers, plumbers, carpenters, none of which can be replaced by computers. The people that are going to be replaced are repetitive workers, like factory workers, and middlemen. Okay? If you are a stockbroker, you realize that your job could be automated, because in the future you'll talk to your wristwatch and buy stocks. So why do you need a stockbroker? That's why stockbrokers have to provide intellectual capital. They have to provide experience, know-how, savvy. They have to provide leadership, innovation. Robots can't do any of the above. Robots are adding machines. We forget that. They're not creative. They can't analyze. They can't understand human speech.
But they are getting smarter. Would you agree with that?
What?
But they are getting smarter.
Oh yeah, but we have a long ways to go before they become dangerous. Now, in America, there's a debate between Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, and Elon Musk, founder of SpaceX. Mark Zuckerberg says that AI, artificial intelligence, will create jobs, create prosperity. Elon Musk says, robots are going to take over. One day they're going to put us in zoos and throw peanuts at us and make us dance behind bars, just like we make monkeys dance in zoos today. So who's right? In the short term, Zuckerberg is right. For many decades to come, artificial intelligence will create new jobs, new opportunities, new energy involved in creating a new industry around AI. For many decades. In the long term, now by the end of the century, robots could become dangerous. Let's not be naive about this. Robots do not have self-awareness. They don't know who they are. They don't know they're robots. Let's keep it that way for a while. Because once robots figure out that they're not human, then we have a problem. But that's not going to happen for decades.
But when that happens, what do we do?
We put a chip in their brain to shut them off if they have murderous thoughts. We have to have a fail-safe system whereby you can immediately immobilize any robot as soon as it starts to realize that it's not human and that humans are in the way.
Interesting. Coming back to the jobs issue just a few minutes ago, we are talking about artificial intelligence and automation not killing jobs, but rather creating new jobs. Are we looking at a situation where there'll be an actual addition of jobs, or just the movement of the jobs to other new sectors? Because if it's the latter, we have a population, global population, that is growing at the same time. So either way you look at it, we have this pretty much the same number of jobs rotated around different sectors. We have robots taking more and more jobs, but we have more people being born every single day. Will we find ourselves in that situation?
Well, not necessarily. If you look at repairing robots, first of all, there are going to be more robots to repair. The number of robots is not going to become zero. A change is not going to become zero. It's going to expand exponentially. Everyone's going to want to have lots of robots in their house doing all the dirty, dull, dangerous jobs that we don't like to do. Robots will do all that, okay? But who's going to repair them? We're going to have more robots, not less. And we need people to repair them, to monitor them, to design the next generation, just like we do with cars today. We have a whole industry of people selling used cars, a whole industry of people repairing cars, and instead of repairing cars, they're going to repair robots in the future.
Now, President Donald Trump just recently announced that the United States is sending people to the moon and also eventually to Mars.
Right.
Is there life on Mars, in your opinion?
The answer probably is no, but why should we care? Because the first space revolution created the computer revolution. Why do we have miniature computers? Because rockets are not very big. They're not very powerful. You have to miniaturize everything to fit inside a rocket. That gave birth to the computer revolution. The whole revolution of computers and lasers and all that was driven by the space program. Now we're going to go to Mars, which will require a whole new set of miniaturized technologies, nanocomputers, computers the size of atoms. We're talking about a new generation of computers coming out of the space program. And so just like the old space program gave us the computer revolution of today, the new space program taking us to Mars and beyond will create an even larger set of machines that will generate new progress and new jobs.
Well, there may be no life in Mars or on Mars, but in the broader universe, are we alone?
No, I don't think so. I think that there are 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And how many of them have planets? We think almost all of them. So how many planets are Earth-like in the galaxy? The rough estimate is about 20 billion. Mm-hmm. So when you look in the sky at night, somebody could be looking back at you, wondering, is there life on the Earth? Because there's so many planets out there. Up to 20 billion, we think, Earth-like planets in the Milky Way galaxy alone. So the question is, how come they don't visit us? How come they don't land on the White House lawn? How come they don't advertise the fact that here we are, the aliens? Well, when you go into the forest, do you talk to the squirrels? Do you talk to the chipmunks? Well, maybe initially, but eventually you get bored because they don't talk back to you. Well, if the aliens are that advanced that they can go thousands of light years to visit the Earth, we're like squirrels to them. We're like deer. Eventually, they'll get bored of us.
All right, hold that thought, Doctor. We'll just take another short break. We'll return with Dr. Michio Kaku, world-renowned physicist and futurist. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. And we're back with world-renowned physicist and popularizer of science, so to say, Dr. Michio Kaku, on a very special edition of the show. Doctor, welcome back. Don't you think some of the logic that we predicate our understanding whether there's life elsewhere is quite limited? What I mean is, let's say we look for water on Mars to determine whether there's life or there has ever been life. Have we ever paused and think or thought to ourselves that, you know, maybe life outside, it's not life like us, but probably they don't need water. So we've been looking in the wrong direction. Do you think there's a possibility?
It's a possibility. We think that most life in the universe is probably aquatic because we now realize that not just Mars, but the moons of Jupiter, the moons of Saturn have oceans in them, and that you can have life forms living aquatically on the moons of Jupiter and the moons of Saturn, like Europa and Enceladus. In which case, most life forms in the universe will be like perhaps fish or octopus rather than like us. And so we're going to have to revise our thinking of what an alien will look like.
What's the greatest discovery or achievement that has been made or will be made in your lifetime, Doctor?
Well, the quantum revolution is perhaps the biggest revolution of all, which took place in the 1920s. That eventually gave rise to all of modern electronics, the atomic bomb, nuclear energy. All the wonders that you see in a doctor's office today come directly out of the quantum theory. Every time I go to my doctor's office, I think, oh my God, I know this. They're all based on the quantum theory, right? And so that was the greatest revolution that we've seen, and we're still seeing the effects of it. The next revolution is what I'm working on, and that is the creation of the theory of everything. To unify the quantum theory with relativity. The theory of Einstein, the theory of black holes and big bangs and space warps, to marry the quantum theory of atoms with Einstein's theory of black holes that would give us a theory of everything.
You've probably gone a bit into my final question, but I'm still going to ask it anyway. Digitization used to be the next big thing, and then AI used to be the next big thing. Those things obviously are already here now. What is the next big thing?
BrainNet. We are now accessing the human mind, and we're now being able to record memories, upload memories. We can do that now, believe it or not, just in the last few years. In the future, instead of sending digital zeros and ones, you'll send emotions, feelings, upload memories on the internet. And that's going to replace the movies. Just like talkies replaced the silent movies in the 1920s, BrainNet is going to replace all of entertainment. Who wants to watch a stupid two-dimensional film with movie stars when you can feel what the movie stars are feeling and be right there with all the sensations and all the feelings and memories of these movie stars? And so this is going to revolutionize how we communicate with each other when we can do it mentally. And that's the subject of my book, The Future of the Mind, when I talk about the breakthroughs being made in physics and the laboratories hooking the mind to the computer.
All these things you've mentioned, and you've also mentioned the early detection of diseases like cancer up to 10 years before it becomes a tumor and things like that.
Right.
What is the ultimate objective of all these things? Is it immortality? What's the holy grail of science?
We are going to become like the Greek gods that we once feared and worshipped.
Immortal.
Like Venus will have perfect bodies and will be immortal, either digitally or biologically. Like Zeus will simply think of something and it will come to be. Like Mercury will go to Mars, will have supersonic transports, will have planetary travel like Mercury. Like Thor will be able to have a power of nature, thunders being controlled by us. And so we'll have the power of a Greek god. The question is, will we have the wisdom of Solomon to go with the power of a Greek god? And that's not clear, because of course we're still just as stupid and ignorant and silly as we were thousands of years ago, except we'll have this incredible technology giving us the power of the gods.
If you can leave one message to humanity that's going to be open 1,000 years from now, what would it be?
I would say that even though we have the power of a god, we need wisdom. But where does wisdom come from? You can't buy wisdom. You can't simply get wisdom from a book. No, wisdom, I think, comes from democratic debate. Vigorous, rough, democratic debate where a society thrashes out whether they want biotechnology, whether they want to have designer children, whether how far they want to push nuclear energy. Wisdom comes from interaction with incorrect ideas. And that's why I would hope that in the future we have democratic debate on the internet. The internet is great because it fosters democracy. Who fears the internet? Dictatorships. Dictatorships thrive in darkness because they don't want their own people to know that they're suffering needlessly. Once people realize that they don't have to tolerate this idiot up there who's a dictator, they kick him out. And so that's why I think that the internet is a very democratizing thing, and that's where wisdom comes from.
Indeed, thank you so much, Dr. Michio Kaku, Professor of Theoretical Physics at the City College of New York, author of 3 New York Times bestseller books, and of course, a world-renowned physicist and futurist. Thanks for watching the show. You can find this episode also online on our website, AWANI.com, and all our social media platforms at 501 AWANI. Download our app, as you can see there, available on Google Play and also the Apple App Store. I'm Lukman Haris. Thanks for watching the show. Have a good day.